All right, so just a quick introduction. I teach seventh grade reading at Teton Middle School. In our school, we're a small rural community, and we have three elementaries that feed into an upper elementary school, which is 4 or 5, and then we have one middle school and one high school. At my school, we're at 460, a little more than 460 kids this year, and those are grades 6 through 8. We have a population that is 30% Hispanic, and just about right at half of those are ELL students. So they speak a language other than English in their home, and it's almost predominantly Spanish in the home. We also have a 40% free and reduced lunch population. And it actually is probably a little bit higher than that because we have several that would qualify, but that won't fill out the paperwork. Um, but so we are a Title I school because of that free and reduced lunch qualification. So the essential question, how would I apply data and data analysis to ensure continuous improvement and to close gaps? Um, so first of all, right now I'm kind of on my own to just do this for me in my classroom because I know that it's a good thing to do as a teacher, but there is no mandate for the teachers in our building to do data analysis. And then I guess the accountability part of that isn't there. However, thankfully, most of us know, best practices, and we are doing that. However, we just, as it seems like a lot of schools are making decisions on what kind of assessment data are you going to look at and how does that measure student achievement. And we just made our annual assessment, kind of an assessment calendar, which was actually helpful for one of our assignments in this course. And so we've all decided on what we're going to use as that universal screener, our progress monitor, and our summative assessment. However, we're really, really data rich, but we're time poor. And so, although we have meeting times where we meet together as team levels, we have it's called teaming in our school. And so we meet every day. Our departments only meet about once a month. And so the struggle about being data rich and time poor and figuring out then how, now that we have this assessment calendar in place and we know what assessments we're giving and what it's measuring, our struggle is then how are we going to analyze the data and make it meaningful for us and for our students.
Wow. So what I understand is you just basically set up your calendar as far as your assessment calendar, and so you know what you're going to do. You just really don't have time to do anything with the data, and based on some of the things that you mentioned, do you ever look at the data of the students that are entering your classroom before they get there?
A lot of times we look at them. I don't necessarily look at them before I get to my classroom, but the sixth grade, I teach seventh grade reading. So the sixth grade teacher looks at the data and separates her students. I teach 2 advanced reading courses and 3 just on-level courses. And those seventh grade on-level courses, that's where all of any students on IEPs and any ELL students are placed.
Right.
But so she uses that data to then track them into their classes. But as far as looking at the data prior to them coming into my class, I do not look at that to place them. And I do the same thing then for the 8th grade teacher. I look at all their scores so we take formative information as a teacher as well as all of their summative data, their grades, their test scores to place them in those reading courses for the next year.
So one of the things that we actually do that might be helpful, might not, is we actually do this thing called our SLO. It's called our student learning objective.
Okay.
And we actually look at their background information, some testing data, and then we project where they should be by the end of our course.
And
Do
you
you
do
do
that
anything like that?
prior to them coming into your room.
Yes.
That's
So for each, and we have to do this. We have to do this for at least one of our classes, just to obviously to get used to looking at data and kind of thing. But we actually get somewhat judged on what we see and then where we project them to be, and then like you said, there's a summative test at the end, and we, you gauge it from based on that result.
And so there's an accountability piece, it sounds like, from administration perhaps, that on that. That's an interesting. We do have a couple of, I guess you would call them screeners. I don't know if you're familiar with the MAP assessment test, and that does give us a score of where they currently are, and it shows their growth projection.
Right.
That test does that for themselves, and so yeah, that's an interesting thing to see, because then you're already looking at the target, right? And knowing where you're trying to get them. Yeah, the problem definitely, the kind of help that I'm needing is how to figure out how to create the time for better data analysis, especially analysis that can look at our subgroups, because we know historically, if you look at the information, we can see overall, specifically in our state summative test, that our Hispanic population is the population where the gaps definitely are in our district, and it's been that way historically. However, that data, then that's the end of it. Then there's not a real plan put in place other than me as the classroom teacher saying, okay, how am I going to help these students? Because we've had a kind of a change in some administrative people that are in that ELL capacity. So I just feel like figuring out how to have more time to do this better data analysis. And this SLO actually sounds like a good idea, because it's maybe it's not about creating the time, maybe it's about using our time more wisely.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could give you a time machine, so you can still make some more hours of your day. Y'all have ESOL teachers on staff? Y'all have
we have one in our building for our 460 kids, and as you can imagine, with 30% of those students are Hispanic and 15% of the population, so half of them are her caseload. She has a full load, and we have students. We're like the bedroom community to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. We're right on the Idaho-Wyoming border, and so a lot of the employees that run Jackson, they live in our valley, and we have a lot of seasonal workers. But we do still have students that come that have little to no English at all,
right?
And so that's part of her workload. But they also have her not only being that, and we call her an ELL teacher instead of ESOL, but they also have her teaching, I believe, 2 courses that are elective courses for the 8th graders, and it's Spanish. So not only is she the ELL teacher, she's also teaching Spanish. So she's like a content teacher for electives, and so her plate is full.
All right, so I'm gonna solve your problem.
Okay.
You need to hire 2 more people to do that.
Right, but we're in this little rural Idaho district with no money, which is the plight of all schools. So there's I wonder if there's I think there's something to what you said, though, about using our time maybe more wisely. And this student learning objective, that's an interesting notion to have that discussion at the beginning before they get to us, and have us create that versus perhaps the MAP assessment.
Right, and you can use like MAP assessment and previous test data to kind of give you an idea of like where we feel like they'll end up, but yes. It's kind of like a baseline.
Right, and that's another thing that maybe that could help streamline those discussions between the other reading teachers and myself, so that we are uh, looking at the same data, because then I can look at their data from previous years, but having that same discussion, and then looking at projecting where we believe they should be, that could be powerful, and then help us make those instructional decisions so that we can help them achieve where they should be.
Yeah, I'd be curious. I know that a lot of these are mainly Spanish speaking students, but do you know what percent of your students ever graduate out of the program, as far as move out of the ELL program?
Well, it's actually a very small percentage. That's been a discussion that we've had. We have students currently in our ELL programming, throughout the district, that they have been in our district since pre-K. So we do a developmental preschool that you can qualify for specific needs, and then we actually have full day kindergarten in our district as well. And we have students that are in high school and they still have not graduated from the ELL program. They cannot score high enough on their WADA test to
Oh
be
wow.
exited from the program. So that's something actually that we're currently looking at, because we know that this is a population that struggles. They cannot make that jump to the understanding the academic vocabulary and being able to, just process their everyday education with, with enough fluency to be exited. So that's actually another thing currently that we're looking at, because we understand that definitely is a factor. If they cannot access, the academics in the classroom, we need to help provide those supports. So
Yeah,
that's something
and that's, I mean, that
looking at.
that's a sounds like that's a entire district problem, not
It
just a
is.
school problem.
It is.
Whereas, you know, you gotta have. I mean, obviously, we all wish we had more resources, but when you look at, because one of the things our district judges us on is the career readiness, whether it's college or career. It'd be interesting to see the students that enter that program and where they end up when they graduate. You
Right.
know, and if they don't get out of the program, that kind of shows you.
Right. Looks at it's been very disconnected, and we actually have, this is the second year that we have this current ELL coordinator for the district, and so we're hopeful that that's the direction that he's taking it. And so and hopefully, if that could get streamlined, then that could actually help more students progress through the program and then be able to access their academics by high school, for sure.